Crypto enthusiasts across the globe were hit with a whirlwind tonight, just 2.5 hours ago to be exact. And guess what? Crypto markets tanked, absolutely nosedived. Why? A classic sell the news moment. Everyone saw this coming, yet it still sent shockwaves. Here's the big headline flashing across your screens. Donald Trump signs executive order for strategic Bitcoin reserve. I've been trading crypto successfully for over 380 days, consistently closing every month in profit. In the last 90 days alone, my followers have earned over $29,000 in profits by copying my trades. Want to see my verified stats? Click the first link in the profile description and start copying my trades for free today. Exciting stuff, right? As someone holding a hefty chunk of Bitcoin, I can't complain. But hold on, what about XRP? What about all those altcoins you were hyping on social media just days ago, Mr. Trump? Come on, we've got questions and the crypto world is waiting for answers. What about everyone else? Don't worry, we're diving into all of that shortly. But let's be real. Seeing the market tank after this news shouldn't shock anyone, unless you're brand new to crypto. The timing? Too perfect to be a coincidence. Now, before we go any further, let me make one thing crystal clear. I'm not a financial expert, this isn't financial advice, and you absolutely shouldn't make any trades based on what I say. I'm just a crypto enthusiast who loves making YouTube videos on the topic. For fun, nothing more. Alright, let's kick things off with Bitcoin. It's bounced back a bit, but the news hit around 6:10, maybe 6:11 p.m. The first person I saw mention it? David Sachs. He's not just anyone. He's the crypto czar for the White House under Donald Trump. He was actually in the room when Trump signed off on this. So, as far as I know, Sachs was the first to break the news to the public. Right on cue, almost to the minute, the market took a nosedive. Bitcoin, sitting comfortably at around $91,000, suddenly plummeted by $5,500 in mere minutes, crashing down to about $85,500. That's a steep drop. Blink and you'd miss it. The whole thing unfolded in just 45 minutes. With most of the damage happening in a flash. But here's the twist. It's already bouncing back. As I'm recording this, Bitcoin is back above $88,000. And it wasn't alone in this wild ride. XRP followed suit, starting at $2.61, sinking to $2.39, and now climbing back up to $2.49. This kind of market drama is nothing new. Every time there's a buzz, people rush to buy on the rumor. And as soon as the news breaks, they sell. It's a classic cycle. Anticipation builds, the market reacts, and chaos ensues. And yet we can't look away. It's pure adrenaline for crypto enthusiasts everywhere. They say, buy the rumor, sell the news, and crypto proves this again and again. Here's the thing, prices only skyrocket on news when it's completely unexpected. If the market sees it coming, if the signals are there and everyone's already bracing for it, then forget about a rally. When the news drops, the market often tanks instead. That's just how it works. Now, let's get to the heart of it. Give me a minute, and we'll dive into exactly what this means for XRP and the bigger picture in crypto. But first, a quick flashback. Just yesterday, I shared why there was solid evidence to believe Bitcoin would be treated differently from XRP and other altcoins. It wasn't just speculation, it felt credible. And now, we know for sure this is exactly how things are unfolding. Here's why I called this story so reputable. And here's just one example. It comes from a well-known crypto media outlet, The Block. But more importantly, it's tied to someone from the Trump administration. That's right. We're talking about Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. The article, published just yesterday, is titled, "Bitcoin to be treated differently from altcoins in U.S. crypto reserve," says Howard Lutnick. A huge claim, right? The crypto world has been buzzing, waiting for this moment. Now let me take you straight to the gold nugget of the article, a direct quote from Lutnick himself. He says, "A Bitcoin strategic reserve is something the president's interested in. He spoke about it all during the campaign trail, and I think you're going to see it executed on Friday." This is big. The idea of a Bitcoin reserve is no longer just talk. It's on the verge of becoming reality. Bitcoin stands apart. That much is clear. The other crypto tokens? Sure, they'll get attention too. Positively, but differently. The message was clear. Bitcoin's playing on a different field. To most of us, that read as, Bitcoin's getting the VIP treatment, especially compared to altcoins. And guess what? That's exactly what unfolded. But this raises the big Trump-era question. How far can his powers go? Could he push for something as bold as a strategic Bitcoin reserve? It's one thing to draft a concept on paper, but it's another to get the US government to buy up Bitcoin as an official reserve asset. Moves like that usually need Congress on board. Just look at gold. America holds nearly $500 billion worth, making it the largest gold reserve in the world. But could Bitcoin ever reach that level of legitimacy? The largest holder by a significant margin, no question there. But let's talk about using taxpayer dollars to invest in something like Bitcoin or XRP. That's a big deal, and should 100% go through Congress for approval. Sure, some might argue, just do it through an executive order. But here's the thing, that's just asking for a legal circus. Even if you could get the money flowing, to what extent could you really make it work? And let's not forget, executive orders are temporary by nature. The moment the administration changes, because let's face it, power always flips back and forth, those orders are as good as gone. Eventually, the Democrats will regroup and win again. Whether it's in the next election cycle or the one after that, I won't claim to have all the answers, but sooner or later the pendulum will swing, and they'll be back in power. When that happens, any president can easily undo executive orders. Those are fair game. Now, laws passed by Congress, that's a whole different beast, requiring a lot more effort to overturn. The real question was whether he could even pull this off. It seems he understood the limits of his authority, judging by what he ultimately passed. And honestly, a lot of folks were left underwhelmed. You could feel the disappointment in the air. It was hard to miss. Many people were hoping for something bigger, and I'll dive into that in detail shortly. I'm working through this in order, but let me say this, there's still plenty to be excited about here. If you've been paying attention, this move shouldn't come as a surprise. Bitcoin maximalists were aiming for the stars, and XRP holders, I hope you're not feeling let down. Because honestly, this news is bigger than anything I could have imagined even a year ago. Just days ago, Trump shook up social media by dropping a major announcement. XRP, Cardano, and Solana are now part of a strategic reserve. Yes, you read that right. And guess what? He specifically listed XRP first. But then, in true Trump fashion, he followed up later, maybe realizing he'd let a little too much slip, adding, "Oh, and of course, Bitcoin and Ether are part of this too." The way he worded it was almost like damage control, as if to say, don't worry, they're in the mix. But let's not ignore the fact that XRP got the spotlight first. So what's really happening here? The favoritism we've been expecting is finally showing. To add fuel to the fire, David Sachs, aka the White House AI and crypto czar, chimed in this morning. He revealed that over the past decade, the federal government sold around 195,000 Bitcoin, raking in $366 million. So what's the play here? And why the sudden buzz around a strategic Bitcoin reserve? If the government had held on to its Bitcoin, it'd now be worth over $17 billion. That's what the lack of a long-term strategy has cost American taxpayers. Just let that sink in for a moment. It's another nudge, a signal of what could have been, and what might still be. The truth is, the profits from simply holding Bitcoin would have been staggering. But here's the thing, this isn't a call for the government to go on a Bitcoin buying spree. In fact, the idea of them diving into the market, especially with Bitcoin nearing its cycle peak, feels pretty unlikely. Think about it, this isn't like the whales who buy strategically and sell at the top. We're already close to the peak. Would it make sense for the government to start loading up now, knowing Bitcoin historically crashes by 67% or more after hitting those highs? Timing is everything, and buying in at this point would be, well, questionable. To put it mildly, I've always been skeptical of any scenario where the government snags massive amounts of Bitcoin. That's just not what's happening here. What's more, there's a lengthy post from David Sachs making the rounds, and to my knowledge, this is the first time it's being publicly discussed. At 6:11 p.m., a significant announcement dropped that caught everyone's attention. And it makes sense. He's the so-called crypto czar. Fox Business journalist Eleanor Tarrant breaks it down perfectly. Here's what she shared. White House crypto czar David Sachs revealed that Donald Trump just signed an executive order to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve using federal assets already on hand. The order also empowers Treasury Secretary Howard Lutnick and Commerce Secretary Scott Bessent to develop budget-neutral plans for acquiring more Bitcoin without adding a single dollar to taxpayers' burden. But that's not all. The move also establishes a digital asset stockpile featuring other cryptocurrencies besides Bitcoin, built entirely from seized government-owned assets. Let's start with this. The United States is roughly $36.5 trillion in debt, and the budget hasn't been balanced in over 25 years. That's right, more than 2 decades of spending without breaking even. So when we talk about balancing the budget, here's the question. How would most Americans feel about it? Even if we find budget-neutral ways to address it, wouldn't many prefer any savings go toward reducing the national debt or shrinking the annual budget? Especially those outside the crypto world? It's something to think about. Now, for those of us inside the crypto space, this all sounds exciting. Change is coming, and we want to see it happen. But is the demand really there yet? Sure, about 55 million Americans, a significant chunk of the population, hold cryptocurrencies. But is that enough? Have we hit the tipping point where everyone agrees it's time to make big moves like this? I'm not sure, but let's dig deeper. Here's the gist, courtesy of Eleanor Terry. Donald Trump's executive order outlines two key things: a strategic reserve and a stockpile. And here's where things get interesting, folks. The way Bitcoin is being handled versus everything else is finally taking shape. And yesterday, Howard Lutnick gave us a clear and bold signal. Here's the scoop. The strategic reserve will now exclusively hold Bitcoin, the ultimate digital store of value. They're tapping into the 200,000-plus tokens the government has seized through years of criminal and civil forfeitures. But it doesn't stop there. Sachs reveals that Besant and Lutnick have been given the green light to find creative ways to acquire even more Bitcoin without dipping into taxpayer dollars. Translation? They're hunting for smart strategies to shuffle some funds around, trim expenses elsewhere, and voila, buy more Bitcoin. But don't get too excited just yet, Bitcoin maximalists. This isn't the bold, Congress-approved Bitcoin spree you might have dreamed of. No declaration of, "We're piling in with infinite funds here." It's more of a calculated approach. Still, you can't help but smirk, right? All this unfolds as the US dollar keeps sliding toward oblivion, making the entire scenario almost comically ironic. That's the dream scenario for Bitcoin maximalists. They wanted a massive, game-changing moment, but instead, they got something smaller. Still great news, but not the grand spectacle they envisioned. And now, many of them are throwing a fit. Here's the thing, this is still a big deal. For years, I've thought that if the US ever decided to use a cryptocurrency as a reserve asset, Bitcoin would be the obvious pick. It's the most recognized, the most established. It just made sense. I wouldn't have been shocked if Bitcoin got all the special treatment. But over time, I've come to see a bigger picture. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know I've always said it could be more than just Bitcoin. Other coins like XRP might also have a role in a strategic reserve. We'll see how that unfolds. What's crazy is that we're now talking about something beyond Bitcoin at all. Honestly, even this level of recognition for Bitcoin seemed impossible just a few years ago. The fact that it's happening in 2025 is wild, and frankly, pretty badass. I'm not a toxic maximalist. I can appreciate the win for what it is. The fact that XRP and a select few other cryptocurrencies are being treated favorably is pretty remarkable when you think about it. Consider this. There are tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies out there, not even counting the absurd number of meme coins. Yet XRP and just a handful of others are getting special recognition from the government, in part because they're seen as made in the USA. That's a big deal. Most coins get zero attention, let alone favorable treatment, but XRP is standing out. That's not insignificant. It's a huge win. Now, onto more details. Eleanor reports that the executive order calls for a full audit of all the digital assets the government currently holds. This includes a separate stockpile of assets beyond Bitcoin. Think XRP, Cardano, Ethereum, Solana, and possibly others, as hinted by the president last week. So, what does this mean? Well, XRP is still very much in the game, and that's fantastic news for its holders. Sure, the crypto market saw prices drop fast. Classic sell the news behavior. Annoying, yes, but let's be honest, it's not surprising. That's just how these markets work. The executive order makes one thing clear. We need a full audit of the government's digital assets. Right now, even Trump doesn't have a precise idea of what cryptocurrencies the government owns or how much. Sure, we have a ballpark figure for Bitcoin holdings, but is it 100% accurate? Not really. It's a massive government with countless agencies, and communication isn't exactly their strong suit. So, piecing it all together is a task in itself. And it's not just Bitcoin. What about other coins? No one knows for sure, but XRP might be in the mix. Now here's the kicker. The government isn't planning to actively shop for more crypto. According to the executive order, they'll only consider it if it's budget neutral, like when buying Bitcoin. The goal isn't a reserve, but a stockpile. Basically, a way to responsibly manage the digital assets the government already has. Sachs explains this is all about good stewardship under the Treasury's watchful eye. David Sachs, the so-called crypto czar, reposted it with a single word: accurate. That's it. Everything I just shared, straight from the White House, directly from the crypto czar himself. And yes, XRP was part of the mix in what he confirmed as accurate. That's not just good, it's a step forward. The real question is, how big of a step? If your expectations were sky high, this might feel underwhelming. If they were modest, it might feel like a win. And if this aligns with what you expected, you might feel pretty neutral. It all comes down to perspective. One thing's clear: Bitcoin is in a category of its own, and there are no plans to acquire more XRP or other coins for now. That's the current state of play. There's no doubt this is a pro-Bitcoin move coming directly from Trump, which, let's be honest, isn't all that shocking. Sure, Bitcoin gets a clear nod here. and the plan to find budget-neutral ways to acquire it might move forward. But let's not get too excited just yet. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's bound to be significant resistance, and things could easily take a turn. The legal question looms large. What's actually doable within the law? If the plan pushes legal boundaries, and I'm not saying it will, just laying out the thought process, courts could step in, objections could arise, and progress might stall. So, is this going to be the massive win for Bitcoin that everyone hopes? Hard to say. In theory, having the US come out and essentially give crypto, especially Bitcoin, a big thumbs up is a huge deal. It positions Bitcoin as the flagship of the crypto movement, which is undeniably a powerful statement. And yes, this could expand the whole crypto market, bringing more investment into the space. That means other players like XRP, which is also getting favorable treatment, could benefit too. This is absolutely incredible. I'm thrilled to see this unfold. Plus, there's an interesting post worth diving into. The blockchain backer recently reached out to David Sachs, asking him to elaborate on his mention of a crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, Solana, and Cardano. A great question considering the US government doesn't technically own those coins. I had a few thoughts on this. It's possible the US could already hold small amounts of these assets through forfeitures we're not aware of, maybe from lesser-known court cases that flew under the radar. If that's the case, I'd imagine the holdings are minimal, nothing too substantial. But honestly, if the US has acquired XRP or other coins through legal means, I wouldn't be shocked. We just don't have definitive proof. And hey, if it turns out they don't hold any, that's fine too. What on earth was that post from 4 days ago? Seriously, why bring up XRP in the context of a national stockpile if there was no intention to buy it or if it wasn't already part of the equation? What's going on here? It makes no sense at all. I mean, why even mention XRP unless there's something bigger at play? That's the only explanation that adds up in my mind. Otherwise, this would be completely irrational. Announcing XRP's involvement without any real plan? That would suggest some serious confusion at the administrative level. And honestly, I don't think that's the case. At least, I hope not. For now, we'll have to wait and see how this unfolds. But honestly, I'm feeling optimistic. If you're an XRP holder, this is exciting stuff. Things are shifting, and as time goes on, more people will hold crypto. Eventually, it'll reach a point where just about everyone who matters globally will be invested in it. This is amazing news for all of us. We're ahead of the curve, beating nearly everyone on the planet to this space. Seriously, we're on the right track. Think about it. Only about 5% of people hold any crypto and less than 1% own XRP. That means we're early adopters. So, congrats! We're in a prime position as this continues to grow. Now, as things evolve, assuming the XRP ecosystem thrives, and why wouldn't it? We could see this stockpile transform into something more dynamic. Imagine a future where XRP plays a bigger role in everyday purchases. That's a real possibility, but probably something we'll see in the years ahead, especially as Congress starts to push for such changes. But are we there yet? Honestly, I'm not convinced. The momentum in Congress doesn't seem strong enough to pass anything concrete right now. I could be wrong. If there's a clear argument for it, fantastic. I'm all in, but for now, let's stay realistic and keep an eye on the shifting landscape. Let's dive into this. First off, if you thought the most effective route was achievable, wouldn't you go straight for that instead of relying on an executive order? A push through Congress would carry so much more weight, giving the ability to buy way more Bitcoin. This approach feels like the lighter version, doesn't it? But hey, that doesn't mean it's insignificant. Here's the thing. This could evolve into something far bigger down the road when Congress is ready. Imagine the potential. With enough momentum, this could pave the way for a massive surge in crypto purchases, Bitcoin leading the charge. And yes, XRP could benefit from this too. Even if XRP isn't directly part of the equation, just having the United States give crypto the green light is monumental. The ripple effect, pun intended, would mean more money flowing into assets like XRP and beyond. It's a no-brainer. This is a massive win. The excitement is absolutely justified. This move sets the stage for something extraordinary in the years to come. To top it off, here's a great post from Matt Hogan, CIO of Bitwise, sharing insights on why this is such a game-changer. He wrote about the impacts of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and the points are fascinating. First, it slashes the chances of the US government ever banning Bitcoin, a huge win for crypto enthusiasts. Second, it boosts the odds of other countries jumping on board and creating their own Bitcoin reserves. Third, it speeds up the timeline for these nations as they scramble to act before the US potentially buys more, creating a race to front-run America. And fourth, it makes it much tougher for institutions, from financial advisors to global entities like the IMF, to argue that Bitcoin is risky or unsuitable to hold. Honestly, it's a sharp perspective. This feels like a solid take, and the implications are exciting. Whether you're a crypto optimist or a skeptic, This development is big. It's exactly the kind of move I thought was on the horizon, so seeing it unfold is impressive. It's good news, and how you feel about it depends entirely on where you stand. I never imagined Bitcoin would attempt something as monumental as making massive government-scale purchases, actions that would clearly require congressional approval. We're talking insane amounts here, like Michael Saylor-level crazy, 500,000 or even a million Bitcoin. At this point in time, such an idea feels highly unlikely. Why? Because it would face intense scrutiny, not to mention come with an astronomical price tag. There have been whispers of plans like this before. Senator Lummis, for example, if my memory serves me right, floated something along these lines. Maybe I'm mixing it up, but I believe a proposal had been mentioned, one that might involve taking decades, maybe 20 years, to accumulate that much Bitcoin. It all depends on the framework of the plan and what Congress wants to pursue, which of course ties back to the priorities of their voters. There are so many moving pieces in this puzzle, but honestly, how can you not get hyped about it? This is the kind of thing that sparks imagination and possibility. Sure, the market sold off. It happens. People can be downright reckless sometimes. For those who see through the chaos, though, it's just another golden opportunity to buy in. Savvy investors are already taking full advantage, making their moves while others panic. And guess what? The price has already bounced back a bit. It's one of those moments where, for this cycle at least, the supply and demand dynamics probably won't shift much. Not immediately, anyway. Here's the thing. This isn't about some groundbreaking new development. The US already had Bitcoin. It's just rebranding it now as a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Fancy words. Same stash. But perception? That's a different story. Perception matters. While this won't shake up supply and demand now, it could down the road. Over years, maybe even decades. That's where the real shift might happen. And honestly, I expect it. Long game, folks. Sure, I'd prefer if no particular coin got special treatment, but let's face it, favoritism was inevitable. Am I upset? Not one bit. Bitcoin is one of my biggest holdings, so yeah, I'm happy to see this play out. That said, I'm still offloading a chunk of it this cycle. Plan's the plan. But hey, I'm all about crypto. That's my vibe. Just remember, I'm not your financial advisor. Don't go buying or selling anything just because of what I say. That would be downright foolish. Play smart.